Good morning, dear students. Welcome to chemistry class. This video is mainly based on the doubts that I have received through your responses. So, let's begin. How the molecules of a gas can move freely in any direction. To understand this this topic, we need to understand that what is the intermolecular distance and intermolecular force. First, the intermolecular distance. Now, this intermolecular distance is the distance or is the space that is present between the two molecules in any state of matter, whether it is solid, liquid, or gas. For example, in solids, the molecules are very closely packed. That is why they cannot change their shape. Whereas in liquids, there is some space between the molecules. And that is why they take the shape of the container in which they are poured. Whereas in gases, this distance or this space is more as compared to solids and liquids. Okay, now the intermolecular force. What is intermolecular force? Intermolecular force is the force that is being act or applied between the molecules. Okay, now this force keeps the molecules intact. Okay, now this intermolecular force is more in solids. Okay, and it is less in gases because the intermolecular distance is more. Understood? So that is why, since the intermolecular distance is more in gases, the molecules of a gas can move freely in any direction, and that is why the gases, they diffuse rapidly. You can see when the smoke from the industries is evolved or emitted out, it easily disperses or it easily get mixed with the surrounding air. Okay, now what is the relationship between intermolecular force and intermolecular distance? The next topic is exothermic and endothermic changes. So first of all, we should let us revise that what is a change. A change is defined, or it may be said that the conversion of any substance from one form to another is known as a change. Now, in case of exothermic and endothermic changes, what happens? Let us take an example. For example, bursting of crackers. Now, in bursting of crackers, what happens? As soon as the crackers burst or they start burning, then what happens? A lot of light as well as lot of heat is evolved. Okay, now this energy is evolved or is given back to the atmosphere in the form of heat. So, since in this type of change, there is a release of energy in the form of heat, that is why it is known as the exothermic change. Okay, now another example is condensation of water vapor. Okay, now what happens if you boil water in a vessel, and after some time you just switch off the gas and you cover it with the lid. After some time we see that the water vapor, we see that the water droplets are small water droplets are found on the lid, on the back side of the lid. So this is because there is a change of state. What happens? The water vapor, it changes into liquid and it releases energy. The heat energy is released. That is why it is known as the exothermic change. Okay, the next change is the endothermic change. Now, in endothermic change, what happens? there is absorption of energy from the surrounding. Absorption of energy in the form of heat. Example, cooking of food. When food is cooked, what happens? It absorbs energy or heat and it gets cooked. Another example is evaporation of water. In water, evaporation of water, what happens? It takes energy in the form of heat from the surroundings, and as a result of which, what happens? The water starts evaporating. So this is endothermic change. Okay. What are electrons? Electrons are the smallest particles that make up an atom, and they always carry a negative charge. Now, elements, all the elements that we have studied earlier in this chapter, okay, they all have electrons that revolve around the nucleus of the atom. Okay, so the electrons, they are arranged in particular shells. Okay, or these shells are also known as orbitals, and about these shells and orbitals and how they are arranged, these we'll study in the coming chapters. Okay, so now these electrons are the smallest particles that make up an atom, and they always carry a negative charge. Okay, and they are found in the shells or orbitals that surround the nucleus of the atom. In the diagram, you can see the electrons that revolve around the nucleus of the atom. Okay, now how this cations and anions are formed. What are cations and what are anions, and how does the formation of cation and anion takes place? Now, if an atom donates or loses electrons, okay, then what happens? It gets a positive charge and it is known as a cation. An atom on losing or gaining of electrons, it always form an anion. Okay, and if it is donating or any loss of electrons is there, then it gets a positive charge and it is known as a cation. Okay, for example, potassium ion, calcium ion, then it gets a positive charge over it. If the atom gains electrons or accepts electrons, then it is known as the anion, and it always gets a negative charge. For example, bromide, the anions of bromide. Okay, sulfide, oxides, they are the anions. Okay, this can be easily understood with this example also. Here what happens, you can see sodium contains one electron, okay, in the outermost shell, and here chlorine is having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7 electrons, okay, in the outermost shell. So here what happens, this sodium, it donates one electron to chlorine, okay, and what happens, as a result it gets a positive charge, and the chlorine, it accepts this electron, okay, and it gets a negative charge. Okay, so this is how cations and anions are formed. So that are the doubts that I received, that I got from your responses, and that's all for today. One more thing, the book exercise and the question answers of both the chapter 1 and chapter 2, and book exercise also of chapter 1 and chapter 2, both I have given the link with this video lesson. If you have any problem, then I'm there to help you. That's all for today, and thank you.